Welcome, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you. Welcome, everyone, to the third panel discussion within the second series of Europe Jazz Network webinars. My name is Karolina Juzwa, and I have a great pleasure to be the host of today's discussion on social inclusion through arts. First, let's meet our panelists. Dominique Collet, an actress, theater maker and cultural activist from Belgium. Alin, Vaida, a founder and director of JazzDanmark from Romania. Eva Frost, the director of JazzDanmark, and Raymond MacDonald, the musician and academic from Edinburgh University, UK. Welcome to you all, guys.
Thank you.
For the next hour, we are going to talk about the inclusivity and communal projects driven by art and their importance in healing our communities during and after COVID-19 pandemic. As we know, we are coming to an end of a very strange year, a year which has brought us lots of new challenges, but also has exacerbated the problems of our world. And it has shown cracks in our communities that require an immediate response. It has further limited the opportunities of young people for employment, education, normal development. It has deprived millions of children of educational structures and opportunities, and it has caused them mental and physical distress. And it has worsened the situation of the most vulnerable groups like the immigrants or the homeless. And these are the groups that require constant and systemic support. But at the same time, what we are observing right now is the rising distrust of people in systems and in governments and institutions. So this is where we come in. And there is an even bigger need and space for cultural actions outside of the governmental structures that has proven so many times to be efficient and successful in responding to these challenges. So how do we use culture and arts as a tool for healing our communities and for responding to these challenges will be the topic of our discussion today. So I would like to start with the short introduction. So guys, if you could tell us a few words about yourself and what you do. Dominique, can we start with you?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Dominique Collet from Belgium. So I'm an actor and theater maker for Kopergietery, which is a difficult name to pronounce internationally, but it's a theater place that works with children and youngsters, focusing on music, dance, and theater. And since 2009, we have a special venue, an extra platform, let's say, in a working class area called Rabot in Ghent, where the theater is both, it's a theater, but it's also a gym, it's a school, it's a social restaurant. And from that neighborhood, we've started doing a lot of participatory projects with the neighborhood, with children and youngsters in that area.
Okay, thank you. Alin, you?
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Alin. I'm from Romania, and I run a cultural organization specialized on events per se. We try to do events with a positive impact in the community, whether it's to inspire somebody or actually tackle different subjects important in our local city. My flagship project is Jazz in the Park, which is a festival that started in 2013, and this festival basically is the way we see the world and the way the world we think it should be. So, of course, besides running a proper festival with music and all sorts of activities, we try to have a different approach on key aspects in the community. One of it is working with with a very with probably my city has the biggest segregated community in Romania. It's a
Yes.
community formed from Roma people living near the garbage landfill.
Yes, so Alin, we will talk about that in a minute. So we'll have a chance to listen more about the communal projects that you do within the festival, which is super exciting. So let's come back to that. Eva, few words about yourself.
Sure. And hello, everyone. So happy to be here and be invited to this panel. It's a very interesting and important topic. So I'm the director of JazzDanmark. In short, it's the genre organization for jazz in Denmark. So we work with projects in Denmark and abroad. And since 2014, diversity and inclusion has been one of our top strategic points, and we work with that in various projects at the moment. And we just got a large funding from the European Union right now for a project which works with improvisation in asylum centers. So you'll hear more about that later.
Super, great, congratulations. I was super thrilled to hear about that. And Raymond?
Oh. Hello, I'm Raymond MacDonald. I'm a saxophonist and a composer. I work with a group called the Glasgow Improvisers Orchestra, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that group later on. I'm also a psychologist, and I'm professor of music psychology and improvisation at the University of Edinburgh. And I'm particularly interested in the relationship between musical engagement and health and well-being, and musical engagement and musical identities, and how we see ourselves and how we engage with music. So yeah, and thank you very much for giving me the chance to talk today.
Yes, thank you guys. So I would like to start the discussion by asking you for a brief answer to a critical question. Why do you think arts and artistic creation could be a tool for healing our communities and helping? So what's so special about music that it could help the most vulnerable groups to recover after the COVID-19 pandemics? Eva, maybe we can start with you.
I obviously have a lot of perspectives on this, and we have been experimenting with this for a while. And obviously, as we probably all think, then music is this universal language that can work with regardless of age, language, skills, and so on. But I just a few days ago, I've just seen Raymond's research, and I think that has a very interesting perspective on this theme. So I don't want to take all the time, because I think Raymond has something to say.
I am keeping Raymond for the end of this question, because I also think that his article is super interesting.
Okay, but then music is a universal language. Next.
Yes. Dominique, you?
Yes, I think obviously I'm more from the theatre field, but what I think is so important working with children and youngsters in these kind of participatory projects is that you create the ability for them to develop new storylines. And I think it's important. This pandemic has shown that the status quo of things that are supposed to happen the way they do, and we can't really change anything about it, especially those children in poorer areas or from different cultural backgrounds can't change anything about this. I think through the arts, we offer them an opportunity to create new stories, new myths, new possibilities to break with these stereotypes and to give them a voice that they otherwise do not necessarily discover.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Alin, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with the answers my panel colleagues gave. But and also I would like to add, from my perspective, is that music creates a sense of equality. Whether you're part of the public that participates at a concert, or whether you're involved in a project as a musician, by participating, you get this chance of equality with all of the community and all of the people involved. And for me, this is important. Inclusion means equality.
Yeah, I think that it's important because music and its commitment, and arts in general, and its commitment to these very important values like social justice, democracy, tolerance. So that's why it's so important right now. And Raymond, in your article, what is music, health, and well-being, and why is it important? You pay attention to a very important role of music and its impact on our social, emotional, and cognitive well-being. So why does music have such a strong impact on us from the scientific point of view?
Yeah, I think that there's now quite compelling evidence to show that music is a separate and distinct and unique channel of communication. When we're engaged with music, both listening and performing music, we are emotionally engaged. So one of the primary functions of music is to engage us emotionally, but we can also be distracted from other events in our life. So we can be fully focused on playing music, expressing ourselves, working with other people. I think Alan's point about the democratizing aspect of music is really important. Music is emotional, it's engaging, it's physical as well. So we're moving, we're coordinating our bodies with other people, and music is intensely social. All the examples that we talked about there are social. So when we're involved in music, we're engaged with other people, we're communicating with other people, but we're communicating in an abstract way as well. So we can be free from some of the pressures of life. We can be free of the need to communicate linguistically, and we can express ourselves unconsciously, symbolically, but in a group in a group context. And music, because also, and it's not, we shouldn't forget this, music is fun. People enjoy playing music, so we are motivated to get involved in this very fundamental psychological, fundamentally social process where we can express ourselves, be connected with other people, be distracted, be engaged, and also we do what psychologists will call very important identity work. We find out things about ourselves when we're playing music, and we relate to other people when we're playing music. And I think music is, and perhaps art engagement as well, is unique in terms of the way in which we can, if you like, engage with a whole host of social, psychological, and cultural variables that not only bring fun and joy, but also express the fundamental nature of what it is to be human.
Okay. Thank you, guys. So from what we've heard, you are involved in a variety of super exciting projects. You are either producers, directors, initiators, or just simple people behind these communal and participatory projects. So if you could tell us now in a bit more about the interventions you've been involved in. So Dominique, as you mentioned, you are a member of the artistic team Kopergietery. I practiced that. Yes. So you've been working with young people. You're also working in a district experiencing structural problems called Rabo. So could you tell us now a little bit more about these projects?
Yes, so the theatre I work from, Kopergietery, the idea is that we take the children as like an equal artistic partner, something that has been mentioned before by my colleagues here. So there is an age difference, but the idea is that we enter a room or a space and we are the co-creators of something that, you know, might be a performance, it can be music, it can be anything. But what we did find is we were in a quite, let's say, a good neighborhood in Ghent, and we realized we tried to work on diversity. And what we did is we tried to speak to different communities and convince children to come to our theater. But somehow I think the locality of where you are is very specific. And what we decided then at 2009, we had the opportunity of the city of Ghent to go to Rabot, the area I talked about, which is a very poor area. The average age is younger than 30 years old. There's a lot of different cultural backgrounds there. And we are in one building with the school. So that meant that we had the children, the participants were there, and we knew their social background. So we realized we had to be there instead of waiting for them to come. Even though we tried to communicate, we were doing all sorts of interesting things. We had to go there. We had to take that step. And one of the first projects we did, which was very meaningful for us, was we realized, for example, we talked to the different teachers and social workers there, and we realized a lot of children came to Belgium. They didn't know the language very well yet. So what they were forced to do, they were forced to read books with very basic, that required very basic knowledge of the language, but they felt these books were very childish for their age. So we created with these children a book that had, let's say, language that was not difficult, but had a theme that spoke to them. So that was one of the first things we did with the school there. And then gradually now, I think for 10 years, we've been organizing workshops and ateliers in the school where we've been working with all sorts of different artists, where we make sure we go to the school and we involve social workers over there. And we do all sorts of projects. We've been working with Handelsbeurs in Ghent as well, where we've put a musician, often jazz musicians, with a theatre maker, because we felt the same ideas of improvisations came together, and especially in that context, children that are not very fluent at the language felt music was an easier way, rhythm, choreography was an easier way to express who they were and to maybe find another identity or create a new identity.
Okay, great. Eva, you in JazzDanmark, you're involved in the variety of projects. You're focusing on different groups. I think it's worth mentioning that JazzDanmark is a recipient of Europe Jazz Network Award for Music and Community for the projects, because lots of your projects are focused on the problem of low participation of women in jazz and creative music. And this award is specifically for the gender balance project. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
And second of all, if you could tell us a few words about these projects.
Yeah. So basically, one of the first projects that we did was in 2014, together with the Copenhagen Jazz Festival. We created this straight up simple action to make a better gender balance in Denmark, in the jazz community. There was a report out that it was extremely unbalanced. And this was a project where we in the last many years, 1 week per year, have a camp. It's called Jazz Camp for Girls in 16 different cities at the same time. And the basic idea is that you, through collaboration and community, can find people who have the same interest as you, and then create a band. And we believe that this is the way for girls to become a musician one day. So this is a way for them to realize that, okay, music is about collaboration and community, and in this community you can get the courage to become a musician yourself. And from this project sprung, there was a lot of other projects coming. So, one of them was actually improvisation camps in asylum centers. So first we started to doing these also only for girls. But then we realized that this was a general need in the centers of Denmark, that the children didn't have any sense of community or collective activities. So we started developing some teaching materials together with some professional musicians who basically moved out to a city where there was a lot of, where there was some asylum centers, and went there every week to try this material out. This very visual, like almost instant composing with visual or graphic notations. And this worked very well. And this is also one of the projects that we have now had a large European funding to develop even further and to spread out in a European context. So yeah, so this was just a basic flyover of what we've been doing. So a lot of very groundwork with the children, like with Jazz Camp for Girls is 10 to 15-year-olds. We have another project which is 13 to 17 and so on. But our new, vision for this whole area is a little bit less directly involvement and a little bit more methodology and overall, trying to change this in an overall sense. So, for example, making workshops for teachers in norm-free or in bias-free teaching. Like making workshops for all the teachers in all the music schools in Denmark, telling them about this so that they can make a difference downwards, and making like being influencers a little bit more than actively doing the projects.
Okay, Raymond, you, as you said, you are an active musician, you are involved, you are an academic in Edinburgh University, but you are also active in the projects, among others, in the Glasgow Improvisers Orchestra, and in the project music and social inclusion. Yes, and that's the project bringing adults from the difficult areas to for the communal music making. So, if you could tell us a few words about these projects.
Sure. I think with the Glasgow Improvisers Orchestra, it's a large ensemble, but we're an inclusive ensemble. So I should say the group includes very experienced musicians, and we collaborate with people from around the world that are interested in exploring improvisation in large ensemble contexts. But I think what's particularly important in terms of our discussion today is that when lockdown started around the world, actually, we began to have online improvisation sessions as a way of staying connected during the COVID pandemic. So for musicians, it wasn't possible to play, it wasn't possible to record or meet. And so we started to have these online improvisation sessions. And to begin with, it was just a sort of a modest affair. We thought this would just be a way of informally keeping in touch during COVID. But what we found was that quite quickly it became important, or there were health and well-being effects of being involved in these weekly sessions. And so and the group grew. The group started off just with the people based in Scotland, but over the course of 2 months, the group grew to include 70 or 80 musicians from all around the world who were involved in these twice weekly workshops, using improvisation as a way of staying connected during the lockdown process. And because we were using improvisation, then the technical aspects of playing music over the internet didn't seem to be an impediment. We were able to play together, to perform together, and to work together during the lockdown. And then this developed into a sort of research project where we started to interview the musicians about their experiences of playing and their experiences of being involved in these sessions. And what we found was that there were quite significant impacts of being not being able to play music. That there were effects on mood, effects on health, effects on sort of general well-being indicators. But getting the chance to play together, getting the chance to work together, had these very positive effects on mood and on health and upon creative practice as well. And this type of work, using improvisation in this way, also translates into the other project, the music as social innovation project, where we used improvisation and we used musical engagement as a way of including people from disadvantaged backgrounds, individuals with who are autistic, or individuals with learning difficulties, individuals who've been denied access to creative activities, but using music and using improvisation as a way of bringing people together in groups, giving them a chance to explore their creativity. And I think this ties into something that Dominique and Eva both mentioned, in that getting people to work in this sort of way has significant effects on their identity, because they're dealing with issues of themselves. And also it has fundamentally collaborative and community aspects to it as well. So that the sort of the identity issues and the collaborative aspects and the issues around identity and community are absolutely important. And that's both on these online improvising sessions with the Glasgow Improvisers Orchestra, but we also see that in the Music as Social Innovation project with the individuals from disadvantaged backgrounds. So these basic psychological and social processes are present, I think, in all the examples that we're talking about today.
It's super good to hear that you are continuing your activities right now, and that COVID hasn't impeded your program. So we'll talk about that a little bit more with other panelists in a few minutes. And Alin, what about you? You've started by taking over a neglected area in your city and changing it into a social spot. And also you worked with a variety of different groups in your city. Could you tell us in a few words about the main projects that you are involved in?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it simple.
I'll make sure of that. Yeah.
Basically, we're a festival. We are a music festival, and this is the angle from which we're getting involved in the community. And ever since we started, our approach was that our festival is for everybody. Everybody should feel welcome. We tried to present jazz music as something that everybody should try, or at least listen to it once a year, and we created this context to do it. But we've noticed that we have this community, this very big segregated Roma community, which is actually one of the let's call it biggest things to solve from my city's point of view. And we noticed that they're not coming to the festival, although the access is free. And we've noticed that although we're saying that everybody's welcome, they're not. So in 2017, we tried to do something to make them feel welcome and to send a message that they are part of our community. So we've actually decided to do a pretty extreme thing, and we've moved one day of the festival. We moved it in their community, which is near the garbage landfill, because they work there. Basically, they sort out garbage and they live off the garbage landfill. And we actually moved a day of the festival there, with concerts, with stages, with bars, with everything, aiming at 2 points of view. One, to show them that they're welcome as well, and we're all aboard on going to them and showing them that we care about them, but also to create a context for people from the city to come to their home and actually see with their eyes this problem that is being ignored, and that we should do, all of us should do an effort to solve it. This is how we started, and we actually, we fell in love with that community, and we started doing more than just doing one event per year for them.
Okay, great. It's a great idea of bringing the event to the vulnerable groups and to the difficult areas, instead of waiting for them to come, which is usually a huge challenge. Yes, thank you. And I would like to talk now a little bit about participants of your interventions, and what changes have you noticed as a result of their participation in your projects, and how do you measure that? Do you monitor your participants during the project and after they are gone, or after the completion of the project? So Dominique, maybe we can start with you. Are you keeping track on your participants, and also are you measuring the impact of the projects that you've been involved in?
Yes, so I was quite shocked to realize, because we were talking about digital innovation, everybody was saying we should think out of the box because of COVID, and we could create new possibilities and so on. But what I realized in these communities, especially when people are less fortunate to have enough economic potential to survive They don't have laptops for each child. In Belgium in March, I think like everywhere there was a complete lockdown, so children couldn't go to school. So learning, everything had to be done by these laptops, and there were no laptops. The idea that we can all do things digitally was very difficult. We didn't reach our children. We were lucky. We are lucky because we I think, I don't know how long exactly, but we're still able to work from June with -12 children that are younger than 12 years old. So we do reach these groups, and we kept organizing workshops and so on. But what we did is we went door to door, and we forgot, let's say, about the creative projects in the first place, but went there and asked them, what do you need? How can we help? We had little presents. We sang little songs. If needed, we helped with homework. We helped to help them. Where can we get information about COVID? What can we do? So I think there's a huge, this whole idea of the digital innovation. I think this is not the case for people from these backgrounds. I think you lose them.
Yeah, we will talk about that as well, and the participation in the digital era. But do you monitor and your participants, because you've been even before COVID, your participants that were involved in your projects, and do you measure somehow the impact of your projects on your participants, or what is happening to them after the project?
Well, the thing is that what we usually do is when we make sure, I think this is the whole basis of our social artistic vision, is that you never let go of your participants. And especially with children, I think it's even more important that when you start a process, the process is ongoing. So I think, like Eva was saying, what we sometimes try to do is when, let's say we had a series of workshops, or we've organized a performance, or whatever we have done within a creative context, we then make sure they become the ones who own the process. For example, let's say we've organized like a semi-public space where we've asked them to create music or do theater or have a small exhibition. After them, what we try to do is give them the responsibility that this is now their space, so that they can take over the artistic projects themselves. And we keep in touch. So in a way, we never let go. And I think that's important, to give the idea that they can also take responsibility for something like that. So in the end, the idea would be they don't need us anymore.
Yeah. So Eva, do you share this approach, and are you staying in touch with your even former participants of the project?
Yeah, so there's two sides of it. One of them is the one Dominique is telling about, that to keep the projects going without us being there all the time. And this is something that we really try to work on, like educating and the workshops I was talking about. But regarding like the monitoring or the effects on the projects, then we do it through evaluations, and then we do it through monitoring in other projects. So, for example, we in the project for the older one, then we monitor how many came from Jazz Came for Girls to that next step, and then we monitor how many then applies for conservatory, and do we see a little bit of a rise, and could we see that some of that was because of one of our initiatives or so on. But it's a huge amount of work also. It's almost as much as planning
the project itself. Yeah, exactly. And Alin, you mentioned, for example, that you are bringing a part of the festival to these neglected areas. And so have you noticed the change that after this happened, for the next editions, for example, that the people that initially didn't come to your festival, after you doing that, they join you for the festival in other areas of the city?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for us is pretty hard to monitor these types of intervention, because not even the people there are monitored. I mean, there are people without IDs that are living there. So, but from this point of view, it was very interesting to observe their behavior when we put them in the position of being hosts, because this is how they perceived the event. For them, it was very important. To to have people from the city coming in their community. So they actually helped us implement all this. We had volunteers from that community that actually helped us with the production of the event. They worked as riggers with us.
They were a part of the process, right? Mm-hmm.
And when people came there, they were really keen to interact with people. They went and chat, they went and danced, and each evening that we did finished with I don't know, a very cool and very big dance together. It was a very special feeling.
Yeah. But have you noticed their increased participation in other initiatives that you were doing as an organization?
Yeah, I mean, actually, we tried to create a context to get them involved in our other projects. Like, for instance, they also have musicians in their community, and we tried to involve them in our projects, so to give them a furthermore reason to come to the projects in the city. But from this point of view, it's a bit their involvement is a bit weird, because when they leave their community, they don't have the same feeling of welcomeness. I mean, it's because other people around. And when we went there, and they were the hosts, I don't know. People perceive them differently. But when you come back to the city, the feeling goes back to, I don't know, I'm scared of the Roma people. How will
it's
they...
also the feeling of distrust and the feeling of isolation. It's always they feel more confident being in their own community than in interacting with other people. And Raymond, what about your participants of your projects, of the previous editions? Do you, and also, from the scientific point of view, do you monitor and the impact that it has on them?
Well, the short answer is yes. Let's move on. It's a big part of my academic work.
If you could, I'm sure about that. So if you could shortly tell us how you do that.
Absolutely. And I think also what was interesting that in Eva and Dominique and Alan's answers, they do point to a very important aspect of the monitoring process, that monitoring isn't just about objectively evaluating what's happening. Monitoring is a political, a social and an economic aspect that can empower the participants. And what was really exciting was to hear that all the participants in those 3 projects were not only monitored, but they were empowered by the process of evaluation. And it's something that I've been involved in for a long time. So, for example, we can monitor and evaluate participants' engagement with work by quantifying musical ability and quantifying psychological variables. So in one of our early studies, we showed that being involved in these community workshops produced significant improvements in musical ability, and those improvements in musical ability were related to significant improvements in communication skills. And so we were actually able to count and quantify and do statistical analysis on the communication skills and the musical ability of the participants. However, there are other ways of monitoring as well, and I think that's important to point out, that we also carry out focus groups and interviews with the participants, and we try and give voice to the participants' experiences, so that when we present our monitoring documents, you actually see and hear the participants' experiences. And during the lockdown sessions that we had, when we interviewed the participants, we were able to hear exactly what their stories were. So things like participants saying, I had a period of grief. It was really unusual for me, but I was very sad at the start of lockdown. And lots of participants reporting feeling isolated and sad and depressed at the start of lockdown. But then as they engage with music, as we interviewed the participants, we hear their stories about the importance that being involved in music has for relieving the grief, helping with their mood. I think also in the project where we were looking at people with autism or people with learning difficulties, we were also not only able to interview the participants, but also their family and their carers, to hear their stories of how did they engage with music and arts activities outside of the workshop. So were they singing in the house? Were they talking about the workshops? What were the sort of the impacts that the workshops had on issues around identity, issues around expression and around communication? So I guess we try and take a very holistic approach to evaluation, try and take a holistic approach to the way in which we monitor the workshops. But it's pointing towards this idea of gathering a body of evidence that gives us more understanding about how these types of artistic interventions operate. What are the fundamental aspects of these artistic interventions? And I think we can hear commonalities across Eva, Dominique, and Alin's interventions. We hear about collaboration, but we hear about identity, about creative engagement, about social engagement and community. And these are the fundamental features of the process that we're trying to monitor through qualitative, through quantitative aspects, through interviews, through focus groups, and to try to get a holistic and complete picture of what the process and the outcomes are of these types of interventions.
Yeah, and of course, gathering this information makes it easier and helps you to fit the program in the future better to the needs of the participants and to structure that accordingly. So let's talk now a little bit about whom you involved in your project on the performers side. So artists behind the projects. So what characteristic must an artist possess to be able to work in these projects and to get into interaction and to commit into this collaboration with participants, musicians, actors. Dominique, maybe we can start with you because you are an actress
Yes.
and you work yourself in the project, but probably also you invite other artists to work with you. So if you could tell us a little bit about what is necessary for an artist to be able to go into these projects.
Yeah. So I think there's two things I would like to say about this. I think on the one hand, it's of course important you have people who are flexible, who are willing to adapt to circumstances that change, sometimes within a few minutes, that are not afraid to sometimes, let's say, when you have an artistic idea in your head and then maybe adapt that to the context, but at the same time are strong-headed enough to not sort of lower their expectations because of the participants. But I think what I found out during all these years is that what is even more important. I think most artists who have who love what they do are able to work with these kind of participants. But I think usually the context that we provide for artists has to be taken care of. We put a lot of effort and money sometimes in the professional festivals or performances or whatever, but sometimes we forget that these artists and these participants also need the same, let's say, they need to be surrounded well. And I think what we do for our workshops is we have two people there instead of one artist. We have two artists working together because you need it. We try to find out what is the best time to organize these workshops. Are the children hungry? Are there any other issues that we need to take care of before? We make sure we meet the parents so that they know what is going on. Sometimes they have no idea what theater is, what music workshops are. We try to make sure, are there any language issues? Don't organize these things on specific holy days that are important for the community. And if you can take care of these circumstances, I believe that is a huge help for artists to work in these kind of projects. And it's something I've learned that I will always forget. And afterwards, evaluate, discuss why they found things difficult, both with the participants and the artists you work with.
Okay, so the preparation of the environment, both for artists and for the participants. Eva, what about you? The artists that you involved in your projects, what do you think is what characteristic should an artist have to be able to do that?
Yeah, but obviously you need to be able to adapt to some situations, but I think that's probably the one characteristic that many improvising musicians have. So and in general, I really think that we should be careful to think that some musicians can do this better than others. I know that actually at Handelsbørs in Ghent, they did these projects where they opened the venue during the sound check with huge international stars flying in, playing in the evening, and then they asked them, do you want to play half an hour for the local school kids? And obviously you have to think about that this is school kids, but other than that, just do your thing. And then they had great success with that. So I was really inspired by that you don't have to be so afraid of putting any musician who can actually deeply improvise with the situation and with the band members into any given situation. It just takes obviously a lot of planning to place it not on a holiday and to place it in the date. It takes planning and it takes funding, because this is not a thing that musicians should do just for free because now they're there. And this funding is definitely available. Now we just had this funding from the European Union, but there's also, at least in Denmark, but probably everywhere, or many other places, money within the state or in the society to help these things go. But that takes administration, and obviously there's a lack of that in festivals and so on. So yeah.
Alin, what about you and the artists you've been involved in? You've been working with?
Yeah, for me, and specifically for this project, it's not that different than actually a regular day of the festival. We actually do the booking, we pay the artists that are performing there, and we try to select or to invite bands that we feel that would fit in that atmosphere. I mean, we didn't took there the most technical jazz bands. We treated the whole event like an open air festival where you have to have a very good spirit, a very positive vibe. We tried to invite specific bands that had this gypsy influence in their music, so for the community would be able to relate better with that type of music. And also we tried to involve, regardless if the music matched or not, we tried to involve local musicians from their community, so they would share the stage with the professional musicians that we brought in. But all the bands that we actually invited to perform at the garbage landfill, believe it or not, they were actually really enthusiastic to perform there, and took that project very openly, and the transfer of energy with the public was sensational. We actually got really good feedback from the musicians that performed there. I mean, I'll give you just this example. The first band we actually brought there was Barcelona Gypsy Balkan Orchestra. Very cool coincidence. And they performed at our opening gala of the festival, where people had to buy tickets. And they agreed to perform the next day at the garbage landfill, where they performed basically for free. I mean, the access was free. And the people didn't mind, and they actually felt better there because the energy was way different.
Cool. Raymond, if you could just say from the perspective of also of an artist and a musician, or what do you think is necessary from an artist too?
Sure. I think it's a very, very important question. And for me, one of the things to take on board is what are the aims and goals of your project, because different projects will require different skills and different sensitivities. So I'll give two very brief examples to highlight that point. So one example is that I was involved in a project. We ran a project for looking at improvisation workshops for individuals with cancer in a cancer hospice. But that's a very sensitive environment, a very sensitive and special group of people. So it was a music therapy intervention, because music therapists are qualified and have a very nuanced understanding about the musical communication processes and the sort of therapeutic objectives that can be applied in that situation. So that's a very specific environment where we needed somebody that understood the clinical environment. We contrast that with Glasgow Improvisers Orchestra work. We in our annual festival every year, and we have an ongoing work throughout the year with children. We do improvisation workshops for toddlers. And in those workshops, the goals are very different. The goals are about introducing children and babies to improvisation, to creativity and musical exercises. And in those workshops, one of our sort of longest serving members of the group, Una McGlowan, runs these workshops from a background as an educationalist and as a composer and a bass player. So she's got an open approach. She has lots of skills and knowledge about the process of improvisation, and she's looking to engage children in exploring their creativity through music. So the goals are quite different from a therapeutic environment. So the skills and qualities are quite different. But Una also ran some of our workshops on the Music as Social Innovation project as well, where the goals there were about inclusion. The goals were about giving people access to creative activities that had been denied those opportunities. And in fact, I noticed a comment there from Vim Wabs saying that children have big ears and they're capable of enjoying complex music. And I think that's exactly what Una is involved in doing, because Una is introducing children, sometimes 3-4-year-olds, to improvisation and improvised music, but doing it in such a way, using specific techniques and specific skills that allows the children to have a great time, but also to explore music in all its different manifestations. So I suppose the short answer to your question is, it depends upon the aims and objectives of your project, what sort of skills that a musician or a creative person needs to have in order to engage with those interventions. But we do understand, if a little bit of thought and a little bit of design, you can pinpoint what these skills are.
I think this is what Wim mentioned, and also Raymond, you picked up the idea of not making the music more simple for example, for kids or for the participants, making any kind of artistic compromises because we think that this is what they need. But in fact, talking to them in like your everyday language of improvisation is also very efficient.
I think that's really important. The basic processes of the Glasgow Improvisers Orchestra are applicable to the most accomplished and most virtuosic musicians in the world, and we're lucky enough to have worked with those musicians. But when Una's doing her workshops with 3-year-old children, she's using exactly the same processes and has exactly the same outcomes. Exactly the same fundamental processes involved in musical communication and in improvisation are similar, whether you're working with 3-year-old children or you're working with the most experienced, famous improvisers in the world.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit, about the current situation of lockdowns, restrictions, etc. You, Raymond, and Dominique, you mentioned a bit about that. And how do you carry out these projects with our participatory projects? So they require participation, and it's even a bit more difficult. It's difficult with concerts, it's difficult with panels like that, but it's even more difficult with inclusive projects. So are you able to carry, Raymond, that you are doing the meetings, and what about the rest of you? Are you carrying out your activities right now? Are you able to do that? And if yes, in what form? Eva,
So actually, this Wednesday we had the final concert of a project which was Jazz Camp for Girls with an inclusion angle, where we had children from a deprived neighborhood engaging with some of the children from the music school, and this was a great success. And the concert took place this Wednesday, and just yesterday, the government shut down the whole country. So obviously, had that been next week, then we would have had to cancel. And I also see the comment from Martina Markowska, who says this, that it's very hard for them to get access because the facilities and the schools are completely out of reach now. So that's definitely a problem, right? We have a large project going on in February, which is also physical, so that's a problem. But during this pandemic, we tried other ways. We also did some social events digitally. We have something we call the Jazz Baton, which is that you have this baton like the Olympics that you give on to the next person, and then they have a meeting, and then 2 from this meeting takes it on to the next one, and it's working very, very well. In this way, we hope to reach the whole the whole Danish jazz community in a few years. And we also did something we called backyard jazz, where people played in backyards for the audience in the windows and balconies, and then we streamed it live and so on. But again, I'm a little bit depressed that we are now reaching a new high in this, because in the beginning of the pandemic, we had a lot of new ideas on how to engage in this, and now it seems like people are just
and hopefully it's temporary, but that's also another problem of the change in human behaviors, and also for this kind of projects, it's more difficult to reach them, but they are also more reluctant and skeptical and simply afraid of getting into any social interaction. So Dominique, as you mentioned, you were like, during this period of time, you were going from doors to doors and inviting the people to be a part of what you do. Do you think it's now more difficult to reach to these vulnerable groups, also because they've changed the way they approach others, and they are more afraid of socializing and of social gatherings in general?
Well, because we work with children so often, there's less fear, I think. And I think in Belgium at the moment, I mean, it's not a good situation. We can only see one person per family, or I mean, there's very limited social contact, but children can still go to school. But what I found very inspiring is that the city of Ghent really gathered all the cultural organizations together, and there's a lot of things going on at the moment to make sure that we make this bridge towards January, so that winter is not gloomy and dark. So there's a lot of nice initiatives. There's a call center, for example, an artistic call center that people can call to, and then they get, I don't know, they get something artistic, like is it a song, a story, a poem, something that applies to them. And one of a beautiful initiative, it's not my idea, but I would like to share it, it's called Let's Tick Together. And the idea is that a musical score has been written for a glass, and usually when it's New Year, you do this. But the idea is that because actually nationally we're all mourning a little bit, we won't be able to see our family or our friends for New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve, and usually you toast to the next year. So the idea is on the 30th of December, everybody can learn this musical score, which is like something rhythmical that's been written by a musician, Ruben Nachtergale. And we will actually also teach our children in our participatory projects. And on the 30th of December, everybody opens their window, we take out our glass, and at a specific point throughout the whole of Belgium, everybody who's involved will be ticking the same rhythm. And hopefully that will be the last time that we cannot actually share our thoughts and wishes with our family and friends. We love.
Yeah. And Raymond, you've mentioned that you carry out some of your activities online, but what do you think about the change of behavior? Which do you think it will stay with us even after the worst COVID-19 moments are over? Whether this paradigm will change and it will be more difficult for you guys, for us to carry out these interventions?
I think there's no doubt that the tectonic plates of communication, of global communication, of personal communication, and of musical communication are changing. We don't know what world's going to be like post-COVID. We can speculate, but we don't know. But I think whatever world awaits us, it is changed. We are individually and globally changed by those experiences. But I also think my own experiences of being creative online, I think that we have made breakthroughs. We've made conceptual breakthroughs about how to work online. We've made breakthroughs about how to be together, how to develop a sense of community, to sustain our community, how to enhance our community, how to run concerts, how to run festivals, and how there is a basic human need to be connected, a basic human need to be creative. And we've learned new ways of doing that during this COVID crisis. And whatever world awaits us, I think we will integrate these new ways of working into our into our ongoing practices. So yes, for sure.
Yeah, and we also know that people move on very quickly, and hopefully it, when it's not that the whole thing will be over, but when it's a bit better, then they will trust us and trust you, like in the process. Alin, what about you and your plans for the upcoming months and weeks? Are you planning any of your activities under the COVID-19 restrictions, and has it jeopardized your projects?
Unfortunately, regarding the social inclusion activities that we've been doing, we had to put a full stop on them this year for multiple reasons. That community per se has been in lockdown. We have the festival. I mean, our main instrument in working with the community there was the festival, and we had to adapt it very much this year. So we had to put a stop on this, and we cannot use technology and internet to work with that community because they have no access. But we're hoping that, I mean, we what we will do is whenever we will be able to get back in contact with that community, we will do it. I mean, we're really keen on this, and based on plans, we're currently trying to adapt our festival, and we're discovering new ways in organizing basically concerts, so that we cannot stop in doing. This is what we do. This is what we know, and we don't want to change our activities or our main objectives of the company. So we're trying to adapt, and I'm sure that the ways that we found some ways, and we're also trying to develop new ways. But I'm sure that these will be better. I'm actually looking forward in the next following years because, this was a painful lesson, 2020, but I'm sure that it will be valuable in the future.
So we will slowly head for an end of this discussion. And Alin, you started with the plans for future, hopefully bright future. I'm really looking forward to 2021, which hopefully will be more merciful for us. So just shortly, what are your plans for the next months and the next weeks? And Dominique, what are your plans for 2021?
Oh yeah, there's so many plans, so many things. I think one of the things that we noticed, like I'm sure all of you have noticed, is there's so many concerts, performances that have been postponed. So it's a huge chaos to make sure that everybody has a chance to perform and to enter in these projects. So I think that's going to be huge work from the part of organizations. And other than that, I think mainly I'm going to cuddle everyone. I haven't cuddled for a long time, and everybody else. I'm going to be so happy that we're able to do that again. And I think there will also be a lot of work to convince, because there's a big crisis now, and now governments give a lot of money to help in a way. But I'm very worried that there will be big cuts in funding, especially for arts afterwards. So I think we're going to get ready to make sure we have a good plan to avoid that.
Okay, and Eva, what about you and JazzDanmark?
Well, as I said before, we have some new projects in the pipeline, so this is very interesting. And but obviously, I'm also very concerned about this. We also support international transport, and that's obviously gone very much down. And so we need to see this in a new perspective. Like, how do we work with international collaboration in the future, and what good things can we take from COVID-19 and bring into the future? And
and artist circulation in the new reality, right? The international circulation of artists. Cool. And Raymond, what about you?
Yeah, I guess the plans revolve around this notion of working in a hybrid way, sort of using the gains that the knowledge that we've developed over the past years, but also we're all desperate to get back into a room together to play music together. So I think, like Dominique, a party is definitely on the cards as soon as we can have a party. But also looking at these projects that involve the new connections that we've made, the new international connections that we've made via the online improvising, but also bringing that into a sort of, if you like, a real in-person collaborations as well. So I mean, one of the big projects we have is that we have an annual festival every year. It just happened a couple of weeks ago, and so we'll be looking to develop new projects from that festival that feeds into next year's festival as well. So probably looking at a lot of developments were made with film and working in films, because a lot of musicians started using visual aspects to their work and developing short films as a way of showing their compositions. I think we're going to see that feed in to next year's work and the year after.
Okay, guys. I have some information from our EJN staff that our time is almost over. I would like to thank you for this super interesting discussion. And as my friend Gard Nielsen says all the time, music is the healing force of the universe. So let's change that into arts. It's the healing force of the universe. And I strongly believe that people like you will be instrumental in healing the wounds and mending the cracks. And that will allow us to move on and from this very difficult and challenging time. 2020, it's almost over. 2021 is waiting for us and for you guys. So definitely you will have more work, lots of things to do, which hopefully will bring amazing results for these groups that require our support and help. So thank you very much again. It was nice talking to you, seeing you. Hopefully next time live, and also taking an opportunity that we have our audience with us on the second end of the internet cable. And I would like to announce that in a week, EJN is organizing a fourth panel discussion on Tuesday, December 15th at the same time, so 4:30 Central European time. And this time it will be devoted to new commissioning and residency model as a way to support creative development artists and international circulation of artists. So that will be the topic that Steve Mead will moderate next week, Tuesday, December 15th. So please follow Europe Jazz Network for more information for the panelists, and also hopefully you will be there with us next week as well. So thank you very much. See you hopefully live soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.